Hollywood sold us a dream. Glittering red carpets, million-dollar smiles, and stories of anyone making it big if they just worked hard enough. But behind those studio lights was a different reality, a brutal system that forced talented artists to choose between their identity and their career. Some hid their heritage for decades, living in constant fear. Others refused to play the game and watched their careers crumble. These are the stories Hollywood never wanted you to know. Number 1. Rashida Jones, the tan controversy that exposed Hollywood's blindness. Rashida Jones walked into that interview room thinking it would be routine publicity. The journalist looked at her, smiled, and casually said, "You have such a beautiful tan." Rashida paused. Her jaw tightened. Then she calmly replied, "I'm ethnic." The journalist laughed nervously, clearly not understanding. Rashida had to spell it out. "My father is Quincy Jones. I'm black." The room went silent. This wasn't 1950. This was 2020. And people still didn't know that one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces was the daughter of a music legend and proudly biracial. Growing up, Rashida heard it constantly from casting directors. Too light for black roles, too exotic for the girl next door, not quite fitting anywhere. When the show Black AF premiered, online forums exploded with confusion and accusations that she wasn't black enough to be in a show about black identity. Rashida had spent her entire career navigating a space where her blackness was constantly questioned, erased, or simply invisible to audiences who couldn't see past her lighter skin. Number 2. Vin Diesel, the action star who turned mystery into power. Vin Diesel never met his biological father. All he knows is that somewhere out there is a man of color who contributed to his DNA. His mother, white with Scottish, English, German, and Irish roots, raised him and his brother alone. When he was born in 1967, his parents' relationship would have been illegal in multiple American states. Interracial marriage wasn't fully legalized nationwide until that same year. Growing up, Vin learned quickly that his ambiguous appearance was both a curse and a gift. Casting directors didn't know what box to put him in. Too dark to be the white action hero. Too light and racially ambiguous to be cast as specifically black. So Vin did something genius. He leaned into the mystery. He played Italian mobsters. He played Latino street racers. He became Dominic Toretto, a character whose ethnicity was never explicitly defined but felt authentically multicultural. Fast and Furious made him a global icon, not despite his racial ambiguity, but because of it. His career exists in a space that wouldn't have been possible a generation earlier. Number 3. Carol Channing, 80 years of silence, one moment of truth. Carol Channing spent 80 years carrying a secret that could have destroyed everything. Broadway knew her as the platinum blonde with the larger-than-life personality. Hollywood knew her as the Golden Globe winner and Oscar nominee, but nobody knew that her father, George Channing, was black. In the 1950s, when Carol was building her career, a producer pulled her aside in a dressing room. His voice was low, almost threatening. "Never let anyone know you have different blood in you. The audience will turn away instantly." Carol lived with that warning for half a century. Whispers followed her backstage. Rumors circulated in closed industry circles, but nobody dared say it out loud because the studios had too much power. Then in 2002, at age 80, she finally spoke. On CNN and in her memoir, she revealed the truth about her father. America was stunned. On Larry King Live, Carol said something that silenced the critics. "I have nothing left to lose, but I still have one thing to give, and that is the truth. I don't want the next generation to live in fear like I did." Instead of destroying her legacy, the revelation transformed it. Number 4. Wentworth Miller. Prison Break couldn't free him from Hollywood's trap. When Michael Scofield appeared on Fox in 2005, the world fell in love with the brilliant engineer with piercing blue eyes. Overnight, Wentworth went from unknown to global sensation, but as his fame grew, so did the questions. Fans assumed he was white. European editions of GQ and Vanity Fair lightened his skin on their covers, making him look even more like a traditional matinee idol. The truth was more complicated. His father was of African and Jamaican descent. His mother was English. Wentworth grew up hearing the same thing over and over from casting directors. Not black enough for black roles. Not white enough to be the all-American hero. In 2007, a British tabloid ran a story accusing him of hiding his heritage to keep fans. Wentworth responded in The Guardian, "I am proud that my father is of African descent. I've never denied that, but I also know Hollywood doesn't want to mention it. The revelation didn't destroy him, but the constant pressure of being not enough of anything pushed him into severe depression." In 2013, he admitted he'd been hospitalized, struggling with the weight of living between two identities while belonging to neither. Number 5. Freddie Washington, the woman who chose pride over stardom. In 1934, when Imitation of Life premiered, audiences were mesmerized by the light-skinned beauty who played Peola, a black woman desperate to pass as white. Freddie herself had skin so fair that most people assumed she was European. Hollywood producers saw dollar signs. One of them pulled her aside with an offer. "If you pretend to be Italian or Spanish, I guarantee you'll be a star in 3 years." All she had to do was change her name, invent a backstory, and let the studios market her as white. Freddie looked him in the eye and said no. If Hollywood couldn't accept her as a black woman, that was their problem, not hers. The consequences came fast. After Imitation of Life, leading roles dried up. Directors hesitated. Southern distributors refused to screen films with her. Some of her scenes were cut entirely. Industry insiders said she'd shot herself in the foot by refusing to pass. But Freddie redirected her energy. She became a powerful voice in the NAACP, fighting for fair casting and equal opportunities. Her film career was short, but her legacy was eternal. Freddie Washington proved that some things are worth more than stardom. Number 6. Hattie McDaniel, the first Oscar winner forced to sit in the back. On February 29, 1940, the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles glittered with Hollywood royalty. Hattie McDaniel was about to become the first black person ever to win an Oscar for her role in Gone with the Wind. The audience applauded when her name was announced. But if you looked closely at the seating arrangement, you'd notice something horrifying. Hattie wasn't sitting with her co-stars Vivian Leigh and Clark Gable. She was tucked away at a small table in the corner near the kitchen, accompanied only by her manager. The Ambassador Hotel followed strict segregation policies, and even on the night of her greatest triumph, Hattie wasn't allowed to sit with white guests. When she walked to the stage, she was both honored and humiliated. Throughout her career, Hattie appeared in over 300 films. More than 80% were maids. Despite her Oscar win, she earned less than white B-list actresses. MGM reportedly paid her less simply because audiences won't pay more for a maid role. Even within the black community, Hattie faced criticism. Activists accused her of accepting demeaning roles. Pressured from all sides, Hattie fell into isolation. By the end of her life, she was selling her belongings to pay medical bills. But her legacy is undeniable. She cracked open a door that had been welded shut. Number 7. Mariah Carey, the pop princess with a whitewashed past. Mariah Carey remembers the rocks. Growing up in Long Island, her family's windows were shattered more than once by neighbors who couldn't accept that her father was Afro-Venezuelan and her mother was white. At school, classmates whispered, "What is she? Not white, not black." When she signed with Columbia Records in 1990, executives saw a problem. She had undeniable talent, but she also had visibly curly hair and features that hinted at her mixed heritage. Columbia's head, Tommy Mottola, made a decision. Mariah would be marketed as the perfect pop princess. White, safe, mainstream. Posters were edited to brighten her skin. Her curly hair was straightened. Every trace of her black heritage was carefully blurred. Rumors spread that Columbia banned her from appearing at events for black artists. Through the 90s, she racked up 19 #1 hits. Her commercial success was so massive that the media had no choice but to rethink their strategy. The breaking point came in the early 2000s when Mariah sat down with Oprah and said the words that changed everything. "I'm proud of my father. I'm proud of carrying black heritage. It's a part of me that cannot be separated." Columbia's whitewashing tactics were exposed, and Mariah stepped into a new role as a queen who transcended racial boundaries. Number 8. Dorothy Dandridge. Beauty, talent, and a tragic ending. Dorothy Dandridge walked into the audition room for The King and I with hope. It was 1956, and she just made history as the first black woman ever nominated for Best Actress. Her performance in Carmen Jones had been magnetic. Surely, Dorothy thought, this nomination would open doors. The casting director took one look at her and said she was too dark, not for the role. Just too dark by Hollywood standards. Her Oscar nomination hadn't changed anything. Studios wanted her to be acceptable to white audiences. Producers demanded she wear lighter makeup. They avoided harsh lighting. They offered her roles, but only as exotic mistresses or tragic characters. Never the lead. Her relationship with director Otto Preminger, a white man, was scandalous. Newspapers ran cruel headlines. Some studios refused to work with her entirely. But Dorothy fought back. In a 1955 Ebony interview, she said, "I don't want to just be a pretty face on screen. I want to pave the way so that black actors can play any role." Hollywood's response was silence. After her Oscar nomination, Dorothy barely worked. She sank into debt and depression. In 1965, Dorothy was found déthrédée in a small West Hollywood apartment. She was only 42, but her legacy lived on. In 2002, when Halle Berry won Best Actress, she said Dorothy Dandridge opened the door that I simply walked through. Number 9. Lena Horne, the voice that refused to be silenced. Lena Horne stood in that Arkansas auditorium staring at a sight that made her blood boil. She'd come to perform for American troops during World War II, but when she walked in, she saw white soldiers seated comfortably in the front, while black soldiers were shoved to the back, separated by a rope. Lena picked up the microphone, started singing, then stopped mid-song. She set the mic down and walked off stage. The next day, local newspapers tore her apart. They called her the troublemaker girl. Military shows stopped inviting her. When MGM signed her in 1942, Life magazine celebrated her as the first black muse of a major studio. But her contracts included a haunting clause. Scenes may be edited for regional markets. In practice, that meant her performances would be cut entirely for Southern theaters. In Cabin in the Sky, her musical number was stunning. But when the film screened in Alabama, her scene was deleted. Theater owners claimed Southern white audiences didn't need to see a black woman looking like a Paris starlet. MGM paid her less than $500 a month, while white actresses earned over $1,000. But Lena refused to be silenced. In 1963, she stood beside Martin Luther King Jr. at the March on Washington. Hollywood tried to edit her out, but Lena Horne became a symbol of resistance. Number 10. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the man who refused to hide. When Dwayne Johnson first tried to break into Hollywood, critics told him he'd never make it. Articles claimed he was only fit to be a football player, but never a leading man. The issue wasn't his talent, it was his face. Too brown, too ethnic, not white enough to be the next Schwarzenegger. In 1996, when he debuted in the WWF as Rocky Maivia, the audience booed him relentlessly. His father, Rocky Johnson, had been one of the first black wrestlers on major television. His mother came from a legendary Samoan wrestling family. Dwayne grew up straddling two worlds, and neither one fully accepted him. When he transitioned to film with The Scorpion King in 2001, critics questioned whether a face that wasn't white enough could become a global box office draw. Rumors swirled that Universal lightened his skin on European posters. Dwayne's answer was defiant. In a 2001 ESPN interview, he said, "My father is Rocky Johnson, a black man who shed blood to pave the way for other wrestlers. I will never let anyone deny that he is my father." Those words weren't just a statement, they were a declaration. Instead of hiding, Dwayne leaned into his mixed background. The Scorpion King opened with a record-breaking $36 million. He became the highest-paid actor in history for a first leading role. He didn't win by playing their game. He won by rejecting it entirely. Hollywood always looked perfect under those studio lights. But for these 10 stars, that perfection came with a price. Some hid their heritage for decades, living in fear. Others refused to pass, choosing authenticity over fame. And a few dared to speak the truth, transforming their pain into power. Their stories aren't just history, they're proof that the fight for identity and equality is never really over. Which of these stories surprised you the most? Drop a comment below. And if you want more shocking truths about Hollywood's hidden past, Hit that subscribe button so you never miss what comes next.